Mike. Thanks for doing this with me. Charity
You're
case.
welcome.
So you're a
You're welcome.
pharmaceutical process engineer. This is a field I don't know really anything about. And I would first like to know just your background, maybe what interests you as a kid, and if that made a difference in what you wanted to study when you got into school, and then how it kind of led you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. When I was about 6 years old, I remember sitting down with my grandpa, and I was asking him about what he did, and he told me that he was an electrical engineer. And I asked him what that was, and he told me, engineering is some of the hardest things you can do, but it's really worth it because you can improve on the world's problems and help people at the same time. And I decided when I was about 6 that I wanted to go into engineering someday. Fast forward later, in college, I was pretty terrible at math. And so I remember I had to go to the tutoring center quite a bit. And I got to the point where math was a strong point for me. And while I was doing those math tutoring sessions, I also decided right then that I wanted to go into the biomedical or the medical or pharmaceutical field, because I wanted to help make medicines more available, maybe a little bit cheaper. And that's kind of how I decided that I wanted to do generic pharmaceutical engineering. And I think it all started with talking about engineering with my grandpa, though.
And then when you were younger, I think of engineering and creating things and
I loved inventing things as a kid.
Well, I'm sure you have a solid science background.
I really did. I think that when I was in high school and college, I got into some sports like rock climbing, alpine skiing, some ski mountaineering and things like that. And one of the reasons why I liked those things so much is because I loved the science of, for example, the physics that go into designing rock climbing gear, like how strong a rope has to be to catch you, and how a camming device works. And I just loved those kinds of things. It was just kind of fun, thinking, you're exactly right, like thinking of inventing things to go with that. That was always a very fun for me to think of those things.
That is fun. I appreciate people who have that brain because I know. And we obviously need it in so many different fields, and I don't necessarily think people always think about, well, when you're younger at least,
right.
Like making medicines and how that impacts our world, especially with COVID. I'm sure you were like, wow, this is so interesting.
It really is. I mean, the way that how you make a vaccine, just the way that that's changed over the last 2 years, it's just incredible. Yeah.
What's your day in and day out kind of look like? What are some of your responsibilities? Are you in a lab? Are you with people?
I mean, so yes, this is actually one of the things I love most about my job. Oh,
then we're done here.
No, this is one of the things I love most about my job is that I spend my days, like day to day, I can spend it part of the time at my desk, part of the time in the laboratory, and part of the time in the manufacturing plant. It's just fun. You never know. I've had days this week actually where I've had all three of those things happen, where I've spent a couple hours in the lab, a couple hours in the plant, a couple hours at my desk, and it's really fun. I mean, day to day, I can be typing up reports or writing instructions on how to manufacture and fill aluminum tubes up with some lotion or cream, or I could be performing an experiment where I see how long it takes for something to dissolve or react with something, and so that's it. I'd say day to day, it's just part of the time in the lab, part of the time in the plant, part of the time at my desk. I just love that kind of variety.
Mm-hmm. Is there a part that you just love to do usually?
Yes. I love designing an experiment, especially with statistics. I love trying to design an experiment where I'm changing more than one factor at a time. For example, like changing speed and temperature and it's like just speed and temperature, for example, those two things, and changing those in different ways. And I love designing the experiment, performing it, and then analyzing the data afterwards. I think that's one of the funnest things. I can't get enough of that, because you've gone from thinking of the problem and thinking of how you want to tweak it a little bit or how you want to investigate it, and you've got results. And even if your results even if they don't give you the perfect answer, they still give you an answer that you can work with and interpret and know, okay, well, next time I need to go here, or next time I need to go there. It's just such a systematic way of looking at things. And I sometimes like that, because so much in life is not like systematic. There's so much choice, and I love just having a clear path, knowing what to do on that. I love that part of the job.
It reminds me of, at least it makes me think back of 11th and 8th grade science class, when you're like, get a hypothesis and create a problem.
Yep. Well, it's corny, but I mean, it's true. It's the same. That's exactly what it is. You're still doing that, even, into your 40s. So,
what kind of things do you work on? Or generic medication, but are there specific things?
Most of the things that I work on are what's considered, I guess, transdermal in nature. So I work on anything that has to do with the skin. So gels and creams and lotions and solutions and syrups. If you can think of something that will be on the skin, there's a chance we've either done something with it or done something similar to it. And so, the routes that, and when I say the route, what I mean is the route of administration that we usually work with are what's called, so transdermal or topical, or buccal. And buccal is those little thin strips that you put in your mouth as well. So those are kind of the three big ones that I work on. And it's a lot of fun to do those things. There's a lot of different medicines that go through the skin. So,
is there a project that you worked on that was really challenging for some reason? Or how long are these projects? How long are you working on one?
From the time that we do a kickoff meeting, and it can range. I've worked on projects before that have been started and finished within a year. And then I've worked on projects that take 5, 6, 7 years to get all the way with what I do done with it. So I usually get kind of a small. I get what's called a formulation, which is like a recipe of ingredients, and I get a really small scale. And my job is to kind of scale it up to the point where we can manufacture like supplies for clinical trials, and then submit it to the FDA for them to review. And so I think that in thinking about that, I think that excuse me, one of the biggest challenges that I've come across are specifically the products that for which the processes are really complicated. Sometimes the processes are just, you add the ingredients in, you mix them, and you're done. Other times you have to actually control the temperature between, like, imagine this cup is a mixer, and I have to control what the temperature is on the outside to the inside. In other words, and those kinds of things sometimes can be really hard, because you need to measure the gradient of the temperature, and so I would say that's one of the hardest things to do. And I think that if I could say, generally speaking, one of the more challenging parts of my job is keeping up with the regulations, different FDA regulations and other regulating bodies. They evolve just like technology does, and keeping up with those is definitely a challenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is a year on a project average then?
No. Oh. No, I would say on average it could be maybe like 2 or 3 years that you would work on it for the window that we see it at. It's worked on for maybe a year with the discovery and formulation labs, maybe 2 or 3 years with us, and then the scale up and commercial group, they might work on it anywhere from a half a year to a couple of years as well. So in all, from initiation to launch, it can easily take 5 to 10 years to do these for each project. So it's not a fast process.
It sounds like dedication. You gotta have to have some patience.
You have to be okay with not getting closure sometimes. Yeah.
There's certain personality traits that benefit you in this career.
At a whole range of people, there's certain advantages with all types of people.
Definitely.
And so as far as there are traits that definitely lend themselves to a good process engineer, dedicated, and allow these things. That's one of them. Sometimes dedication, though, is created. Like maybe somebody isn't born with the dedication, but they gradually get it. But I've worked with really interesting types. I've worked with, like I said, people that love people and people that just hate people, but that can really focus and really do amazing. I mean, some of the smartest people in the world. So I wouldn't say that there's any kind of magic. I don't know, or any specific trait that somebody needs to have to be successful. But I think that just someone who's willing to solve problems. I think that's the biggest thing, is somebody who's able to look at a hard problem, like mathematically or scientifically speaking. I mean, and not just kind of close their mind, but think, okay, well, what are the possibilities and how can we solve this problem? I think that's probably one common denominator that somebody would need to have.
I think
or grow.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that you weren't good at math, and then you were dedicated and you worked hard at it. Dedicated, and we want to learn, and we can adapt, and we can develop, and we can get into any field we want. Really,
definitely, yeah. If you're willing to put in the work and open your mind to that, I think I agree with you 100%.
What would be your advice for someone who is starting in this career or starting a career in general? Should you do an internship? Should you study certain things? What would be your advice?
Yeah, my advice is, actually, what you said is a huge thing. My advice is.
Sorry, I took it.
No. I would have said the same. I was actually forming the answer in my mind already. But I think that either your junior or senior year in college, I would look for an internship. I don't think that as a hiring manager, I don't necessarily look for the person who has worked or gone to school, in the fall, in the summer, in the winter. It's not so much how you work, it's how smart you've worked that's important for me. And so if you've taken a summer off to do fun things, that's fine with me. It's more of what are your possibility, what can you do with your mind? No one graduate college knowing how to be a process engineer, right? Math, the principles, engineering principles. So my advice would be, find an internship, whether it's during the summer, whether it's during your college, whether it's during a semester of work, and that kind of extracurricular work is almost necessary, I think, nowadays to get ahead of everybody. I think on average, for an open position that I look at, I get 50 to 100 resumes, and so it's you really want to do things like that to stand out. So look for an internship. Learn the principles. Like when you're sitting in class and you're wondering, well, how is this the Schrodinger's equation, or how is knowing thermodynamics going to help me with everyday life? Well, it might not, but if you're going to get a degree, if you're going to go into pharmaceutical or process engineering, it's going to be important. And so learn principles over trivia, if that makes sense. So that's probably my biggest, and make connections. Try and try and network a little bit in college. I think that that's important to do.
It doesn't hurt, right?
Right.
I mean, because you never know what you're
never know.
doing in the long run, or if you need some help or whatever.
Right. And these are skills that are kind of universally good for anything you pursue. If you decide to go into law or into medical school or into other things, these behaviors are going to be necessary for kind of anything that you put your degree towards. I mean, even raising a child right now, you know, our when our kids are going through math right now, and we can help them with their homework, and I'll know I'll be able to help them do hard stuff. I mean, you never know what you're going to learn, how it's going to help you, and it helps raise kids. So
that's true, and we know each other personally, so you help me with my math struggles. That's another topic.
I like math.
You know? Well, thanks, Mike, for doing this.
You're welcome.